اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد. يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا. أيحسب أن لم يره أحد. ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين. فلاقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة. فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة. ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة. أولئك أصحاب الميمنة. والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة. عليهم نار مؤصدة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون. فما يكذبك بعد بالدين. أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى. فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى. وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى. وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى إن علينا للهدى وإن لنا للآخرة والأولى فأنذرتكم نارا تلظى لا يصلاها إلا الأشقى الذي كذب وتولى وسيجنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى صدق الله العلي العظيم.
درود محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ. آج بھی زینب کی آتی ہے صدا بائی حسین. آج بھی زینب کی آتی ہے صدا بائی حسین. تیرا چہرہ تیری آنکھیں بھول کب پائی حسین. چلتے نا کے سے گرایا خود کو جلتی ریت پر. چلتے نا کے سے گرایا خود کو چلتی ریت پر. گھٹنیوں کے بل میں تیری لاش تک آئی حسین. بس میں گھبرائی تھی خنجر تجھ پہ چلتا دیکھ کر. بس میں گھبرائی تھی خنجر تجھ پہ چلتا دیکھ کر. پھر کسی مشکل میں گر کر میں نہ گھبرائی حسین. بہہ رہے تھے آنکھ آنسو تیری رخصت کے وقت بہہ رہے تھے آنکھ سے آنسو تیری رخصت کے وقت پھر کوئی آنسو نہ ٹپکا آنکھ پتھرائی حسین ہاتھ میں کوزے لیے سب آسماں تکتے رہے ہاتھ میں کوزے لیے سب آسماں تکتے رہے ابر نے ایک بوند پانی کی نہ برسائی حسین دور افتادہ سفر سے لوٹ کر میں نے نوے دور افتادہ سفر سے لوٹ کر میں نے نوے ٹھنڈا پانی جب پیا بس تیری یاد آئی حسین تیرا چہرہ تیری آنکھیں بھول کب پائی حسین آج بھی زینب کی آتی ہے صدا بائی حسین صلوات
Salam Alaikum. Inshallah, tomorrow will be the last majlis of this Ashura. The program will be beginning at 7 p.m. Inshallah, with the recitation of Hadith Kusa. 7 p.m. just because of Hadith Kusa. 7 p.m. with the recitation of Hadith Kisa, followed by Salam Sozu Mercia, and then Sayyid Maulana Syed Jafri's speech, then Noha Khwani and Namaz Maghribain Ba Jamaat. If I can request the people that are sitting at the back to fill up the boxes that are up at the front, so people that are coming in late, they can occupy that spot. Please do remember to generously donate towards the Muharram Fund, as these programs are held with your help only, and a video with regards to our future construction project.
Assalamu alaikum. On these nights of mourning and Ayyam-e-Azah, the Al-Mahdi building project team would like to send you our condolences. In honor of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, we are happy to announce that the construction has started on our new Al-Mahdi Islamic Center in Toronto, Canada. Located at Markham Road and Steeles Avenue, this new center will be easily accessible from all areas of the GTA. This amazing 55,000 square foot community center consists of large prayer halls, a massive gymnasium, a recreation center for youth and seniors, a modern nursery for kids, classrooms, conference rooms, mortuary, and much more. This new state-of-the-art facility will be the hub of activities for youth, adults, and seniors. Opportunities and benefits for generations to come, insha'Allah. Phase 1, the complete covered structure of the center, including the main services required for partial occupancy, will have an estimated cost of $11.4 million. Financially, we are pleased to announce that we have $2.6 million in the bank. We have $700,000 in pledges, which we are receiving with the start of construction. We have $2 million in an interest-free loan from a donor, and the bank will provide a construction loan of $3 million. We need your help and support to raise the deficit of $3.1 million, insha'Allah. So in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, we invite you to become a part of this amazing sawab-e-jariyah. Please donate generously towards the construction of Al-Mahdi Islamic Community Center. Please sponsor a musalla for $1,500 or a brick for just $500 in honor of your marhumeen. Let's work together to make this center a reality. Donate at cig.ca/donate.
And just a reminder, please do follow all the COVID-19 protocols. Make sure that you're wearing masks at all time and sitting in the same box of the family members of your household. Please recite aloud salawat as I call Syed Asad Jafri to be on the minbar. Allah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Human rights in Islam has been our ongoing topic. Tonight is lecture number 11. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your grief and gham from the day of Ashura. May He give you no grief and gham except for that of Ali Muhammad. And may He extend your life one more year to once again be there on the day of Ashura to pay your condolences. For your tawfiq inshallah and that of your children, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad please. Our attempt for the past now almost 2 weeks has been to talk about this massive topic of human rights in Islam. We've covered everything almost, not everything, but a lot of things to do with the idea that the lens of human rights in Islam is a God-centric one. And so we traveled through God and talked about His oneness and His balance. We talked about our responsibility. And then just before leading up to Ashura, we talked about the rights of God, the rights of your children, and the rights of yourselves. And that leaves today and tomorrow, and slowly but surely the day that you're begging for is almost there, Tomorrow's my last discussion, inshallah. Tonight, I want to look at the idea of the discussion of ethics in Islam and human rights. And let me describe to you a little bit of the premise of why this discussion is very important. There is absolutely an existence of ethical sciences within the discussion on human rights. Those individuals who refuse to uphold the rights of the ones in front of them or beneath them or below them, sometimes the reason why those rights are not given to the right people are ethical. It's an issue of morality. And sometimes things like pride and ego and jealousy and greed, all these things block us from giving the ones that are owed their rights. And so Islam has a comprehensive discussion on human rights and ethics. And within Islam now, the discussion on ethics alone, as you know, is a massive one. Ilm al-akhlaq is a whole science in Islam that covers everything from self-care, emotional intelligence, the rights of others. And so I cannot let this ashra go without talking about the ethical dimension of human rights. For those of you who are invested, those of you who are serious about the fact that, look, I have dependents that are owed rights, and you are quite calculating about the fact that I don't want those rights to be stripped of them, there's an ethical dimension to that discussion. And the reason why this is even more of a discussion is because we live in a very me-centric generation. And in a me-centric generation, we think about, well, me. And so the thought is that I'm not given my rights. And so I live a very entitled life in a me generation, where I have it figured out that this person has not given me my right, that person, and I live my entire life now waiting for others to give me my due. In a me-centric life or a me-centric person, the thought is never there that, wait a second, what about me to them? What do I owe the person in front of me? Because remember, the only thing that you can do is within your control. As much as you'd like to shake the person in front of you, you can't. As much as you would like to go in and wonder, what are you thinking? Why aren't you acting this way, for example? You can't. But what you can do is travel inwards. And it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to kind of, be able to kind of navigate through that. It's very easy now to sit there in a very negative space and say, you know what? The world has not given me what I deserve. From day number one, I've been robbed of this and robbed of that. So if we all kind of thought and gave into the me-centric idea, then yes, of course, we will live a life where the rights of our spouses and our kids and our parents and our siblings and our cousins and the ummah at large is all going to be taken away from us. The second point is we have to work within the walls of our control. As much as what we see in Afghanistan sometimes, in Yemen right now, Palestine, let's say, up and down, Nigeria, Kashmir, the Uyghur Muslims in China, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, you name it. As much as we would love to kind of, what can I do for the ummah at large? It's a great thought. The reality is that let's first work on your four walls of your ummah that you have control over. Are you upholding the rights of the person beside you? That's all we really can do, right? That's the circle of our influence. Yemen and Syria is a circle of our control, meaning what? We're worried about it, but we're not in control of that. So let's examine this idea of converting a me-centric vision into a God-centric vision. Now I'm going to balance it out with my 9th Muharram Majlis, which I'm sure you have not forgotten, because there's no way you forget my lectures. And in that discussion now, I talked about the rights of yourself, right? To be self-forgiving and self-loving and self-caring. And talk to that 10-year-old inside of you, that 15-year-old inside of you, and tell them, look, your skin's not that bad. It's okay. You'll be all right when you're in your 40s. Right? Talk to that, that 12-year-old that never got picked for his basketball team because he was unathletic. Tell him that, look, when the athletes break their bones, they'll come to you when you're a doctor, you can fix those bones. right? Give them the words that you wanted others to give you when you were 12, 14, 18, 21. Let's balance that out with a little bit of the breaking of the idol of the self today and move towards this God-centric life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. Now again, I'm going to ask you please, Surah Nisa, verse number 100, a beautiful verse, an absolutely beautiful, irfanic, mystic verse. Surah Nisa is the 4th chapter, verse 100. 100. While you pull out your phones and look for the Quran app, recite one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. The verse says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَنْ يُهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The one now who does hijrat, who travels, who flies, maybe some translations say, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll find, يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, they'll find on this earth, what? مُرَاغِمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعًا. They'll find ample amount of resources. It's wasi, it's very, very broad. The earth is huge, and there's resources everywhere. And the verse goes on to say, وَمَنْ يَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ muhajiran, the one now who leaves their home, listen very carefully now, who leaves their home in a state where they are a muhajir, they migrate, ilallahi wa rasulihi, towards Allah and His Prophet, so it is rasulihi, towards His Prophet. They are people that what? And after that, ثُمَّ يُضْرِكُهُ الْمَوْتِ. In the process of them migrating from their homes towards Allah, they understand death, or death meets them, or they attain death. If that happens, Allah says, فَقَدْ وَقَعَ أَجْرُهُ Allah. There is this azim ajr for them. Okay? And then the verse ends, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah is Ghafur, Allah is Rahim. Okay? Now this verse has an exoteric dimension to it and an esoteric dimension to it. It has a zahir, it has a batin. It has an outer, has an inner, it has a hidden, it has an apparent. The apparent meaning on surface is that he's talking about those people who migrated, my immigrant parents in the audience. That if you now migrate fi sabilillah, if you have left your country, let's say, for example, because you felt like I can't raise pious children in this country, so I'm going to go to a country where I can raise pious children, fi sabilillah, you'll find that Allah's earth is very vast. And as you leave your house in pursuit of God, and in that process you end up leaving this world, Allah now has this azim ajr waiting for you, this grand reward waiting for you. Okay. If I can couple that verse with the verse from Surah Ali Imran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يَرْجُونَ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ. The one who has iman, the one who does hijrat, the one who does jihad, right? The mu'min, the muhajir, the mujahid. They do all of that now. They have faith, they migrate, and they struggle fi sabilillah, on the path towards Allah. They are who? Ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. They are somebody who can expect, or they have hope for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So the apparent makes sense. I think it's nothing mind-blowing. But let's understand a little bit of the batin of this verse. As many of you know, there's 7 layers, 70 layers, 700 layers of each verse. And we must travel a little bit inside. I'm trying to show myself and all of you a different insight to the verses that maybe you see every single day. Let's understand this through the lens of our discussion of human rights and ethics. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, in this verse, the portion that I want all of you to focus on is the portion that says that for the one now who leaves their home, مَنْ يُخْرِجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ. Bait here, in the apparent meaning, means your home, your structure, your 4 walls. But in the spiritual dimension of the verse, bait here means your nafs, your soul. Let me explain. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh in his Adab al-Salat, a beautiful classical a book on Salat, in the opening chapters of his Adab al-Qalbiyya discussion, as you know, He has 17 discussions on the etiquettes of the heart before he even tackles salat. If we want salat to be a mi'raj, an ascension, we have to go through 17 different discussions. Everything from khushu' to tamkeen to tranquility to, I don't know, right? Huzur qalb to everything. In there, he talks about the fact that if we want to be somebody who is a musafir, who's traveling towards Allah, and please follow me tonight. Traveling towards Allah, he says there are signs of a traveler. If I come to your house and I see there's a suitcase packed at your front door and your hand is a boarding pass now, you're running around trying to get, this and that. My first question is, where are you going? All the signs now add up that you're traveling somewhere. Suitcase is there, boarding pass is there, the passport is there, the currency is there, everything is there. In the process now, you see, I'm a musafir because these alamat, these signs are there. He says for a physical journey, there are alamat. For a spiritual journey, there's also signs as well. Understand? If we are spiritually now traveling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same way that somebody has to leave their physical home to travel, Imam Khomeini says one has to leave their spiritual home to travel as well. For example, if I come into your home now and you're sitting there on your couch, I don't see a sign of a suitcase, there's no boarding pass, there's nothing. You say, yeah, I'm about to catch my flight, I'm leaving. I'm like, there's no signs of a suitcase, nothing. I don't see any signs of travel. Are you sure it's today your flight? Maybe you forgot. Because you're sitting there in your home clothes, you don't seem like you're in a rush. The day of travel is usually a busy day for a lot of us. He says the same idea. If we want to be those individuals who are a salik on the suluk of Allah, the traveler on the path towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we must leave our home. And the home, he says, is that egotistical nafs of ours. Our comfort zone. Our ego, our friend, the one that pumps us, the one that feeds us, the one that is there when nobody is there, the one that tells you, yeah, you're right, that person owes you something, you're better than them, right? Really makes you feel great. If you're wronged, when no one else sees you're wronged, your ego will say, look, you were wrong, you deserve better, you're better than that. They know who you are? There are people now, sometimes they line up outside and there's no boxes open for them. No boxes, it's all full. I'm sorry, they close the door, I'm sorry, there's no boxes. Do you know who I am? My blood, my sweat, my tears are in these walls. There's no box for me. No, there's no box for you, I'm sorry. Law is law, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be me, I'm not above the law. There's no box, Digga. I'm going to be outside. I saw a lot of people on the day of Ashura outside. I felt bad. This is their home. They have every inch of themselves in these walls. Now others won't come and say, you know what, that's wrong of you. You, your family, yourself, oh my God. But your ego will tell you that. And that's your home, right? And your home is your comfort. Your home is where the comfort is. When you come home, it's like, oh, okay, the rest of the world is gone now. Home sweet home. When I get home after my tour of this city at night, when I hit the bed at 12:30, oh, just release. Home sweet home, that's it. My bed, that's it. My pillow, everything. He says the spiritual home of the human being is their narcissistic ways. Understand this it's a very irfanic point, and I want to challenge you all tonight. And the beauty of Islam that makes me laugh is Islam says what? To fight that home of yours inside of you. Don't get too comfortable. If you want to travel towards Allah, leave home, he says. Remember, La ilaha illallah, they're all connected. The biggest ilah we have sometimes is us. And the example he gives is beautiful. Back in the day, when they wanted to when they wanted to calculate, when is my salat qasr, when am I a musafir? Nowadays you have miles, kilometers, you have apps even to tell you that. Back then they would have two different criteria that if any of these two happen, then you are a musafir. Number one is you can't see the walls of the buildings of your town. Okay? You travel so much, you can no longer see the skyline back in the desert day of your city, let's say, for example. You're far enough now, you're in namaz al-qasr. Number two, you can't hear the adhan from the mosque. So one has eyes, one has ears, right? I can't see the walls, I can't hear the adhan. Once you can't hear your own local adhan, you've traveled far enough now, you are now a musafir. He says that that is a physical journey. He says for the spiritual journey, it's no different. When we stop looking at the walls of the ego and stop hearing the adhan of the narcissistic self, when we stop seeing the walls and hearing our praise, hearing that voice saying, you are amazing, you're the best, there's no one like you, everyone's worse than you, blah, blah, blah. When that adhan, he says, that call towards you now begins to lessen, no, you're traveling towards God. Oh, it's hard. It's hard. So yes, you can look at that verse now through this lens. So now when the verse says, وَمَنْ يَخْرُجْ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ, the one now who leaves their home, this is not a physical home. The one now who leaves his ego, detaches from that self of them that's destructive. Now, a lot of my youth ask me, I said, why? Why are these destructive elements inside of us? The ego, the greed, jealousy, shahwa, lust, desire. It's not my topic, guys. I need 2 or 3 nights to describe it. And I had a discussion last year's Ashra on social justice on the need for evil. Evil has to be there. There has to be destructive elements inside of you in order for you to rise up above that. But that's a different discussion altogether. They're there. They're inside of you. Absolutely. Now it says the one now who does ikhraj, who leaves his house or her house, her ego, in the sense that they are now climbing towards Allah, muhajiran ilallahi wa rasulihi. Now they're moving towards Allah. Now you get it, right? We've cut the chains of the self. We're moving towards God now and the Prophet. And then he says, thumma yudrikuhul maut. Beautiful. Again, in the beginning, on the apparent, on the zahir, on the exoteric, we think, okay, somebody, let's say, I don't know, God forbid now, is traveling towards a different country and they die in their journey. But look at the wording in the verse. That's why I asked you, visually look at it. It says, yudrikuhul maut. They dark mauts. They understand death. This death is not the physical body. This death is of the ego, of the self. Because when you now leave that home of the self and you travel towards Allah, you're bound to meet the death of yourself. Now, yes, there is an ajr waiting for you. Otherwise, there are people, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, there are people who have left their country and have come here in search of God, I think, and have found shaitan. You have stories, I have stories. The water of Canada and America got to them. There were some youth who came here at 14, 15, and now they do things that not even I, who's born and raised here, could think about doing. And that's just the reality of it. So it can't be just a physical migration. Oh, get up, say Bismillah, land in some, I don't know, Houston, Texas, and all of a sudden there's ajr waiting for you. No, it can't be. It can't be that. There has to be something deeper. And that deeper is that we are going through 2 journeys. So example I often give is that we want to understand a spiritual migration and a physical migration in one night. Come to Shabi Hijrat, the night of the migration of the Holy Prophet. We always talk about one physical migration, but in reality there were 2 migrations that night. One migration was a physical one, no doubt, from Mecca to Medina. The Prophet left. The Prophet physically walked out of his house and made his way towards Medina. But that wasn't the only migration. Imam Ali also went through a migration that night. From one stage of the pleasure of God to another stage of the pleasure of God. If one is physical, one is spiritual. Now that requires Ali now to break the chains of the self. He never once asked a Prophet of Allah, what if they think that I'm you and you're me and they kill me? What if they attack me? What do I do? He asked one question, right? All of you know this. If by me sleeping here, you and Risalat are saved, then I'll sleep like nobody else will. The same you heard from Imam Hussain, day of Ashura. If it's required that the swords and the arrows fall upon me from my grandfather's deen to be saved, then bring on the swords, bring on the arrows. That's a person who is what? Who's left his home. Oh, understand. We can't have it both ways. Allah says that there's no qalbain fi jawfi, there's no two hearts inside of you. Sometimes we wish there was, right? One for the dunya, one for the akhirat. One for me, one for God. He says, no, I only give you one heart. Now, one heart only has room for either one. And it's a lifelong struggle, no doubt. It is a lifelong struggle. But understand the idea that if we want to now uphold the rights of those around us, we first must crush the ego inside of us and stop looking outside. Yes, I'm not saying that what's happening to you right now, let's say with your husband or your wife or your kids or your in-laws or your mother or your sister or whatever, or your brother is right or wrong. I'm saying that, look, you can sit there and clutch a pillow and cry over it, or you can work towards what you have control over. And that's you. That's why the very famous hadith, mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before you die. Meaning what? Destroy the home inside of you before physical death comes up upon you. That has to happen in this world. Imam Ali says this is the world of amal, that's the world of hisab. When you get there and say, oh, I should have destroyed my home inside of me, it's going to be a little bit too late. Understand the discussion and balance it with my 9th Muharram talk, right? Self-worshipping, self-worth. Fine line, very, very barik, thin line between the two. That was self-worth. This is self-worship. Let's be careful. The verse is saying the one who leaves the spiritual home now they can be considered to be a musafir. Otherwise, I'm sorry, you can't sit at home and say, I'm traveling. No, you're not, bro. You're at home. You're not traveling. You're fooling yourself if you think, you're on a plane right now. I'm traveling towards God. I'm flying towards Allah. Meanwhile, I'm worshiping myself. It can't be both. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Yes? Are we there with me? Yes? Yes? Okay. Now, how do we get there? How do I make sure that I uphold the rights of those around me? How do I make sure that I don't have a me-centric lens and I resort back to the God-centric lens? Because one thing I've been saying at Masumin almost the entire Ashra and to my young guys in front of me is that, look, we live in a society that's going to feed the me-centric inside of you. And feed it good, like good food, like steak and like vegetables and like poutine and good food that you can't say no to. And the deen says, no, you have to go through God-centric. Find yourself through God, not through yourself. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala. He has a very beautiful hadith. And again, I'm challenging all of you with this hadith. Understand it, please. And anyone is confused at this discussion with Wednesday's talk, please come and see me. Absolutely. He says, when we rely solely on ourselves, understand the hadith. When we depend on ourselves for everything, my spiritual development, my physical development, my anger management, my emotional control, everything. I am the judge, I'm the jury, I'm the defender, I'm everything. I'm completely dependent on me, he says. You have opened the arena of shaitan, he says. A lot of us, me, myself included, I'm good, I'm okay. To the point where my amal are not only enough, Asad Bhai, they're good enough. I have young guys coming and telling me, Asad Bhai, I don't see God putting me anywhere else but heaven in the hereafter. I was like, yo, wow, give me that confidence. It's good to believe in the hope of Allah, but not to the point where you become complacent. No, I've seen what's bad. Asad Bhai, I'm not that bad. That's great, man, mashallah, but let's be very careful. Now, how do we get there? Taqwa. It's not a secret. Taqwa is a massive definition with all sorts of dimensions to it. Let's break it down a little bit now to find out exactly what we can do. Taqwa is nothing but two things: refraining and controlling. To refrain and to control is taqwa. Refrain makes sense. Refrain from those sins, of course. A lot of this talk about freedom and freedom and freedom and freedom. The freedom God gives all of us is the freedom to control things inside of us. To control the wajibat with us. I have that control. I can choose now to tread that path of the wajibat. I can choose now to not. That's up to me. That's freedom. That's the freedom that we want. We don't want instinctive freedom. We don't want animalistic freedom. That those things I should refrain from, no, I'm going to do. Those things I should control are not. It can't be that we are somebody who is out of control of our own selves. We're not a creation where there are emotions inside of us, natural emotions inside of us, and we are the ones that believe that entire emotion is wrong. For example, anger. In other systems of belief, all of anger is wrong. Right? If you slap me on my left cheek, I'll give you my right cheek to slap as well. No problem. But I won't stand up to you. I won't retaliate. Islam says no. Anger is a natural emotion. There should be moments where you are angry. Absolutely. But not to the point where you lose control, right? Anger now takes over this entire system of yours. So you say what you want. God forbid your hands go free, right? You cause some damage. And then when order is restored again now, that's when I'm sorry, my bad, astaghfirullah, please Allah, tawbah, repentance, blah, blah, blah. When I desire something, desire is so strong, I don't control it. Again, I put down the aql a little bit. Okay, desire, you're in control of my entire wujud, my entire existence, from my limbs to my eyes to my senses, everything you're in control of. You're like, yeah, that's what I want. And so we commit sin after sin after sin. And then when once again that order is restored, astaghfirullah, right? This back and forth now, this extreme fluctuation is damaging. Taqwa is refraining. Taqwa is controlling. You have to tame the beast inside of you. The beast doesn't tame you. It's not like, okay, you know what? I'm going to ride you for a while, now you ride me. No, not at all. And that's a whole discussion on akhlaq, a massive emotional intelligence discussion. Right? So these shari'i sins that we are asked to refrain from, let's start there. Let's keep it simple. Right? You guys have heard many, many times. You want to tread the path of basic piety. Well, let's do our best. I'll do my best to not commit sin and do my best to control my wajib acts. Meaning what? I'm in control of my wajib acts. I carry them out when the time is right. I'm the one now making sure that I'm going there. Time doesn't control me. People don't control me. People's image of me doesn't control me. I control myself. So if I want to wear hijab, for example, of the eyes or of a physical hijab, I am in control of that. I'm not worried about what the person in front of me is thinking. If it's time for salat and a few non-Muslims are around me, doesn't matter. I'm in control. I'll pray salat. You can wait. They don't control my wajibat. I control my wajibat. Now that comes from what? That comes from immense pride, immense strength, the sense there's no fear of rejection, there's no ahsas kamtari, there's no inferiority complex. All these things are out. That's when I'm in control. Otherwise, a lot of what we do, we've handed over control to somebody else. And those are basic shari'i sins. That's where we can all start from. The notch higher, where we can really kind of break that idol inside of us, are not shari'i sins, but ethical sins. If you want to go up a little bit, let's go through ethical sins. There are some things that are not shari'i sins. For example, jealousy. To be jealous of somebody is not a shari'i sin. You won't be punished for being jealous. If you act on it, if God forbid you strip someone of what they have, that's different. But inside now, in the heart of your hearts now, you're jealous. You're envious. You have hasad. It corrupts the heart for sure, but you won't be asked about it in the grave. Holding a grudge inside of your heart. These are recommendations by the ulama and the Ahl Bayt that look, you should free your heart because that heart is made for Allah. Again, not a sin per se in the legal aspect, but again, a damaging, polluting element inside of us. That, by the way, if you hold on to it long enough, it could lead, of course, to a shari'i sin. These are all methods to make sure that when we leave this idea of the idol, of this me inside of me. This narcissistic way. Why is ikhlas so difficult? So difficult. Because sincerity is a destruction of the self inside of me. Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam says, he says that the ouj and the summit of sincerity is that when I do something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, It's not that I don't want someone else to recognize it. I actually get upset when someone else recognizes it. Oh, where is that hadith and where is someone like me? That taliyan, that shabash, that... Look at the hadith, right? The act that's done in the utmost secrecy holds the highest of rewards. There are things that you do only you and God see. There are things I do that only me and God see. And that's okay. But now to keep it that way is jihad. I did it. I had a moment of tawfiq. It felt good. Great. Right? And then who? Shaitan. Waswasa. Shaitan. Waswasa. Waswasa. Imagine 10 people now patting your back. Shabash. Taliyan. Kya baat hai? Imagine that. Times 10, times 100, times 1,000. And then Islam says that what was once a ni'mat becomes a niqmat. What was once a blessing now becomes an avenue of shaitan. That's why to begin something with sincerity, the sixth Imam says, is easier than to maintain that sincerity. It's not easy. If we want to be individuals now that don't allow the ethics now inside of us, or the lack of ethics to block this idea of rights inside of us, why should I give others their rights when I've been denied my rights? Or I want to do dhulm on others because dhulm has been done on me. That's very common nowadays. Right? You destroy an entire nation because your nation was destroyed, let's say, 50 years ago. Where is that logic? That's a very me-centric concept. Right? And that exists inside all of us. It's just a matter of us looking inwards. Again, I'll say this again to myself. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Am I like that? And yes, the higher road is very difficult. It is. But let me make one point here before I go towards Masahib. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, please. Sometimes I feel like, you're saying, Asad Bhai, that someone has wronged me and I need to right others. The more I'm wrong, the more I right others. And ultimately, that's the highest level of akhlaq, right? The Prophet says it's easy to give to the person what they give you. Remember, the Ahlul Bayt never reflected back onto the person in front of them what they gave the Ahlul Bayt. Remember that point, please, guys. It's very important. It's not that the Ahlul Bayt waited for your akhlaq. Oh, you're going to give me B, I'll give you B. You give me D, I'll give you D. You give me ignorance, I'll give you ignorance. You give me fire, I'll give you fire. Or you're nice, I'll be nice too. You're talking soft, I'll talk soft as well. I'm just a reflection of who you are. That's all I am. I don't have my own principles. Never. The Ahlul Bayt had their own set of principles and akhlaq, and they reflected that in front of everybody. Look at Imam Ali's hadith, alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli alayhi. He says, give your brother from your wealth and your blood. Give your enemy from your fairness and justice. Give everyone else from your kindness and compassion. Come on, man. This is the Ahlul Bayt. 6 qualities for 3 sets of people, all of them within you. It's your enemy. Your enemy could be spitting in your face. You make sure you reflect your akhlaq to them. Now, there's limits to everything. There's limits to everything. The same first Imam has a beautiful hadith. Ma yas'adu ahadan. Nobody will reach the level of sa'ada, to be sa'id. Sa'id is true happiness. So it's not this happiness that, you're happy, but really deep down inside you're miserable. Right? Those people who are, posting great things online, they're the ones who are the most miserable inside. Islam says no. True sa'ada, true sa'id will never be reached illa bi iqamati hududillah. My young guys, except when you establish the limits of God. When you don't travel outside the hudud of Allah, when you travel within the limits of Allah, the Sharia essentially. God has laid out a life plan for all of us in all aspects. And you travel within those limits, he says, you can expect to be sa'id, truly happy. If you travel outside, it's chaos. Because now you're on your own. So everything has limits. And even, guys, I'll say it, and I'll say it with complete responsibility, inshallah. I really hope I get it across. Humbleness and humility even has its limits. Sometimes I think that we want or God wants us to be zaleel in front of somebody. No. Remember Imam Ali's hadith from a couple of nights ago, right? It's enough for my izzat, my respect, that I am your slave. So if I want to be zalil, if I want to bend and bow and rub my nose in dirt, which is mustahab, it's for God and God alone. I don't do it for anybody else. Such an important point. Yes, sometimes you have to bend, sometimes you have to swallow, sometimes, just even within Silat Rahim, there is a limit within. Why are there limits and stages of Silat Rahim? Sometimes the basic level, the Imam says, it's a sahih hadith, is just salam, kya hal hai, you good? Thank you. That's it. That's enough. Islam does not say to make sure you're a doormat, people walk all over you and then reverse back and forward, reverse back and forward, and say, Allah, I'm just taking the high road, I am as your prophet is. No, absolutely not. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Have some respect. God's given you that respect. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ. Allah has given you that izzah. You can't just sit there and be dirt for somebody else. Even within the idea of the confines of friends and family, there are some people that are toxic. We should remove them from our life slowly but surely. There are some people that we can't remove. You set boundaries. This idea that humbleness means zalala is not inside the deen. I'm sorry. You've been given respect. You are respectful. You are somebody. Remember, the qiyam, the idea, I'm standing in front of God. If I'm going to bend facing qibla, not facing you. And yes, sometimes you take the high road because that's your akhlaq. But sometimes you have to now look inside and say, look, am I losing my own self-respect here? So it's very easy now to talk about the fact that this person's rights, that person's rights. We have to sometimes look inwards and ensure that we are not an individual who's living a me-centric life, looking through human rights in a me-centric lens. Even when those whose rights are trampled, we have the idea, well, I'm not Yemeni, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Pakistani, I'm not this. It's still me, until it hits home. Right? COVID is nothing but a hoax until my uncle passes away. Now it's real. Right? Don't take the vaccine until I have it. Everyone, please take the vaccine. Why? Because I just got it. I'm fighting for my life. That's very me-centric. Got to be careful out there. God says, leave your home. You want to travel towards me? Leave the confines and the comforts of your ego. And that's a very difficult thing to do. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And when you end up doing that, you end up taking on the approach of Bibi Zainab. It's incredible to me. How exhausted were you yesterday? Emotionally drained. After Sham-e Ghariba, if somebody asked you to go to a midnight majlis where there was another maqtal recited, you said, Baba, I'm done, I can't. I don't have the dam now. The dam for what? The dam to hear the Masayib? And what Masayib? 15 minutes? 10 minutes? In this South Asian community, we don't read more than 15, 20 minutes. We can't bardash it, we can't handle it. She took that gham of Asr Ashur. She took the gham of Sham-e Ghariba. Imagine the sun setting on Karbala after the maqtal of Imam Hussain. The first moment of darkness where there's nobody except for one bimar Imam Sajjad. And yet nowhere up and down the day of Ashura did you ever hear a gila, a complaint, a shakayat from Bibi Zainab. Never. She never turned towards Najaf, never turned towards Medina, never called her father, never called her grandfather. One after the other, from Ona Muhammad to Ali Akbar to Hatta even Tali Zainabiyya, never asked, Ya Rasulullah. Yes, she called out, do you know who this is? But the one moment on the 11th of Muharram that she turned towards Medina and called out for her grandfather, this is a lesson for you and I. Was not her own sons, her own brother, her own nephew, was not the burning of the tent. It was the moment that her chadar was taken from her. Then she turned towards Medina. Nana, are you seeing this? This is your ummah? This is your Hussein? who's drowning in blood, who's been trampled. And yet after all of that, when she was asked, what is that day of Ashura? She says, Jameel, everything God-centric, everything God-centric. Now this, can you imagine? These are small moments, I tell you. Understand the laqab of Masa'ib. Now her journey has begun. Her journey has begun. And it's almost as if she had a talk with herself. That, okay, you know what now? Hussein is gone now. Abbas is gone now. Ali Akbar is gone now. Qasim is gone now. You have to now step up, Zainab, and become the daughter of Ali. I said it on the day of Ashura. I said on Shabi Ashur. She saw things in this journey Hatta Hussein didn't see. She dealt with things that Hatta Hussein didn't see. She took the trauma of the day of Ashura through Kufa, Sham, back all the way back to Medina. Imam Sajjad lived for 3 decades with that trauma. Imam Muhammad Baqir was 5 years old the day of Ashura. So they're not easy things to understand. The one image, can you imagine the image now? Imagine the image on just before the 11th of Muharram. On the morning of the 11th Muharram, actually in the morning now, they say, the Maqta says that Bibi Zainab could hear the sound of somebody praying. Understand? She looks towards the camps of Umar bin Saad, and what they have done is they have lined up all of their respective soldiers that have been killed, who are washed, who are wrapped, lined up, and by Jamaat, they're all reciting Salatul Mayyit. Imagine Zainab now, from the door of the khayma, looking to that tent, then she looked towards the Maidan of Karbala, and Hussein is still lying there. But that wasn't the worst. Look, there are some here who have lost their loved ones, lost their fathers, lost their mothers, my elders now, go back to when you've lost your parents. The tasalli, the moment that brings a little bit of comfort to us, and it's often asked, right? When you call someone for pursa, let's say, for example, for condolences, the first question you ask is, did the burial happen? Yes. Is it done? Yeah. Ghusl, everything. Tadfeen, everything. Ghusl, yeah. Qabristan, everything. Yeah, sab kuch ho gaya sab kuch, absolutely. And sometimes as the waris, as the son or as the husband or as whoever is in charge of this mayyit now, that the sali that gets you through that moment is that I washed the body with my own hands. I wrapped the body with my own hands. I buried it. I was the one that shook the shoulders during talqeen in the qabristan. I was the one that made sure I poured the water. I read the Fatiha. I planted the flowers. And you have this sense of calmness that even in the last moments of my loved one's life, I was there to make sure all the rites were carried out. Now you ask Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam. This qafila now, Umar bin Saad now is taking this qafila towards Kufa and Sham through the Maidan of Karbala. Through the Maidan of Karbala. Look at who you're leaving behind. The one right in the front was Imam Sajjad. The Maqtal of Mukarram says this, that Imam Sajjad made his way off his horse. Mind you, he's now tied. He's tied, he's bimar, made his way off the horse, somehow made his way sitting in front of the body of his father Hussein. Zainab is watching this from her own savari. She's watching as Imam Sajjad now gets lower and lower now. His head is lowering now in front of the mayyat of his own father, and she could see his face. His face now is turning colors. His face now is becoming different. He seems like he's weakening. He's tied. His hands are tied. He can't even pick up the khak of Karbala to drop it on his father at that moment. Something to give me tasalli. Zainab says, I saw his face. It was changing colors. So I myself now made my way off the camel, made my way towards Imam Sajjad, gave him tasalli. Look, my son, don't worry. The Prophet of Allah said that this is our test. This is our patience. Everything will be all right. There will be the wad that will come and send salams to your father. There will be minars here. There will be shrines here. Thousands and thousands will come from far and wide to send their salam salams to your father. That's why on the day of Ashura, those of you now who are going for ziyarah, listen to this very, very carefully. He says Imam Hussain himself to Bibi Zainab, and some say to the Bani Asad tribe that look, after we are gone from this world, construct some shrines for us. And as my Shias come from all over the world, just do me a favor and send them my salams and tell them that their Hussein sends their salams to you. So don't worry. Imam Sajjad now looks up to Bibi Zainab, tears rolling down his face. I understand all that, Pupi Amma. I'm ready to go to Kufa. Just answer me one question. Have you ever seen a son who's leaving his father unburied on the plains of Karbala the way I'm leaving my father unburied? Fatima Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein,
کربل کی کہانی جا کوئی بھی سنائے گا، دل والوں کی آنکھوں سے ایک دریا بہائے گا، وہ قافلہ سرور کا جو شان سے نکلا تھا، صغرا کو خبر کیا تھی، نہ لوٹ کے آئے گا، زہرا زہرا پرسال و بہتر کا، زہرا زہرا مہمان بلایا ہے اے کوفیو سرور کو، مہمان بلایا اے کوفیو کیا کنب شہیدی کا پانی بھی نہ پائے گا، زہرا 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 ٹوٹی ہے کمر شہ کی گھبرانا نہیں اکبر، ٹوٹی ہے کمر شہ کی فرزند نبی تیری میت کو اٹھائے گا، زہرا اکبر کا بھی پرسالو، زہرا اکبر پامال ہوا قاسم جب گھوڑوں کی ٹانپوں سے، کس طرح چچا تیری میت کو اٹھائے گا زہرا قاسم کا بھی زہرا زہرا قاسم تھا ہاتھوں کے کٹنے کا کچھ غم نہ دلاور کو کچھ غم نہ دلا سیدانیوں کا پردہ اب کون بچائے گا زہرا عباس کا زہرا سوتے ہی نہ تھے اصغر جھولے میں تڑپتے تھے سوتے اصغر جھولے میں تڑپ مادر کو خبر کیا تھی ایک تیر سلائے گا زہرا زہرا اصغر زہرا سرور نے اٹھائے تھے سب ساتھیوں کے لاشیں سرور نے اٹھائے تھے سب ساتھی شبیر تیرا لاشا اب کون اٹھائے گا زہرا زہرا سالو ترگا زہرا زہرا پر سالو
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل
حي على خير العمل.
الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليا ولي الله أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاح حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله استغفر الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. حول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان وعجل فرجه الشريف اللهم لعن قتلة الحسين وأولاده وأصحابه الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته بحول الله وقوته سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله استغفر الله ربي وأتوب الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف يا ولي العافية نسألك العافية عافية الدنيا والآخرة الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. Let's recite this ayah 5 times for the following individuals: Sayyid Zahid Hussein Rizvi and Muhsin Sayyidai. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليا ولي الله أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة